So let us continue with Lost Spring. Now, before we begin the chapter, you need to understand the meaning of the word spring. Now, spring is a season of colors and fragrances and all kinds of things. And in literature, spring is associated with childhood and innocence. You understand? And when we talk about lost spring, we are talking about those children who have been drifted away from the joys of childhood very early in life. That means they have been forced into labor very early in life. And we are talking about two parts in this chapter. One part is about a small boy named Sahib from Simapuri who's a rag picker. Part 2 is about a boy named Mukesh who's also poor, and he's a bangle maker from Firozabad. Now, part 1, you need to understand Sahib is not from India. He has come from Dhaka in 1971. Fine. Lot many storms came to Dhaka, and they destroyed the houses, they swept away the fields, and everything got destroyed. So the people didn't have anything to eat over there. So they decided to come to Delhi. They decided to come to the big city looking for gold, the author says, looking for better opportunities is what, the author is trying to say. But, they didn't find any space in Delhi, so they had to live on the outskirts of Delhi. They had to live on the outskirts of Delhi, on the boundary of Delhi. Fine, that is Simapuri. Do you understand? So the other thing that you need to understand is, so they are refugees. They are not citizens. They are refugees. They are squatters. They don't have, permits to live here. Now, Anis Jung, the author is a she. Anis Jung observes this little boy Sahib, coming to her neighborhood, scrounging something in the garbage dumps. There are piles of trash, and he keeps looking for something in the garbage dumps. Now, one day, Anis Jung goes there, questions, what are you doing? Why do you do this? Why don't you go to school? He says that I don't have any school in the neighborhood. I don't have any school in the vicinity. She asks very glibly, half jokingly almost. She says, if I build a school, will you come? And she asks in a manner, is she committed when she's trying to say this? No. She just half jokingly says, if I, build a school, will you come? He says, yes, I will come. After a few days, this little boy comes to Anis Jung. He asks, is your school ready? She feels absolutely embarrassed. She feels absolutely guilty because she had given an unspoken hope to a poor boy, and she felt really embarrassed. She felt mortified because she had actually made a promise which she couldn't fulfill. Now, after few days, she also comes to know about his full name. And what is his full name? His full name is Sahib Alam, which means Lord of the Universe, and it was extremely ironic, according to whom? According to Anis Jung, because she says that this particular boy is living in miserable conditions, in abject, humiliating poverty he's living. Garbage is his means of survival. Fine, he keeps roaming around here and there, rummaging through the garbage dumps and the piles of trash, and his name is so grand, which is completely opposite of what his reality is. Now, another thing that Anis Jung notices about these people from Simapuri, about these rag picker boys from Simapuri, she notices that these people don't wear shoes. Fine, poor people, they don't, they can't afford shoes. Now, she's reminded of a story which a man from Udupi narrated once, to her. He said that when he was a child, he was actually the son of a priest. Now, when he was a child, he didn't have any shoes to wear. So, the school was near the temple. So, every time he used to go to school, he used to make a prayer. And the prayer was that I would like to have a pair of shoes. Once he got these shoes, he made another prayer that I don't want to lose my pair of shoes ever. So, after a few years, fine, Anis Jung says there's been a great deal of change in Udupi, in places like Udupi, because earlier children didn't have even shoes to wear, but now there were shoes to wear. They could afford shoes. So that means there has been a great deal of change that has come in places like Udupi. But if we talk about Simapuri is like almost frozen in time. There has been no progress. People were shoeless and they are shoeless. So this was the second checkpoint. Now the next checkpoint you need to understand is, therefore, Anis Jung says, Simapuri, although it is lying on the outskirts of Delhi, fine, but still it was miles away from it. metaphorically. What does this mean? It means geographically speaking, Simapuri was just next to Delhi, on the boundary of Delhi. So there was no distance between Simapuri and Delhi. But if we compare the lifestyles of the people living in Simapuri and that of Delhi, people in Delhi, of course, they are well off, fine. But in Simapuri, they can't even afford basic amenities of life. So you need to understand there was a great deal of difference, you understand, in the lifestyle of people living in Delhi and people living in Simapuri. Therefore, the author says Simapuri was on the outskirts of Delhi, still it was miles away from it metaphorically. The next checkpoint is Anis Jung now gives us the description of the condition of people living in Simapuri. She says that almost 10,000 people live in Simapuri and in absolutely abject poverty. And she says, they're living in structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, and they're devoid of sewage, no drainage, no running water, miserable conditions they're living in. And she also mentions for them, food is more important than an identity. Why? Because they are refugees, fine, they are refugees, they have no permits to live here, they are squatters from another country, without permission they have come to this country now, but so they don't have any identity cards, but they have ration cards, fine. Because you need to understand the political sharks, the politicians, these people are a big vote bank for them, fine. So for their own ulterior motive, for their own personal profit, they make sure that they get ration cards so that they can vote. So, and they are not concerned, they don't have identity cards, but they say कि हमें identity cards से क्या ही होगा. Why? Because for them, what matters more? Food is more important to them than an identity. This is the prime reason why they have come from Dhaka. Now, another thing that is really important, a question that comes, how was the meaning of garbage different for the adults in Simapuri and for the children living in Simapuri? You need to understand, for the adults, fine, garbage was a means of their survival. It was like a roof over their heads. But for children, you need to understand, garbage was full of possibilities. One can find 10 rupee note, one can find, one 10 rupee coin, whatever it is. So the fact is, garbage for them was wrapped in wonder. If they used to find one coin, they will hunt for more. You need to understand. So garbage for them was full of possibilities. It was wrapped in wonder and amazement. But for adults, garbage was something as normal. It was a means of their survival. It was their daily bread. It was a roof over their head. Moving further, after a few days, Anis Jung notices Sahib wearing tennis shoes, shoes for the first time. And, she gets to know. And what was he doing? He was watching two gentlemen playing tennis. You understand? So, remember one thing. There was this nearby club there. Two gentlemen in white. They were playing tennis. And Sahib was just watching them. You understand? Remember, Sahib is a child. Fine. For, children to play, it's something as common as, anything. But Sahib is watching that tennis match that was going on between those two gentlemen as a pipe dream. It was like a very impossible dream for him. He doesn't have time to play because he has to just roam around here and there. He was a partner in survival for his parents. He was getting money so that, why does he scrounge through the garbage dumps? So that he can find something of utility, sell it off and get some money, support his family. So he had become partner in survival for the family. Now, he was watching a game. Fine. He couldn't play games. He's a child. Lost Spring is the name of the title, name of the chapter. Now, one thing that you need to understand is he was also wearing tennis shoes. And these shoes were actually discarded by a rich boy. Fine. Because one of these shoes had a hole. Fine. So this pair of shoes that he's wearing must have been discarded by a rich boy because of a hole in one of them. But Sahib, according to Sahib, one who has walked barefoot entire life, fine, getting a pair of shoes, even if there's a hole in one of them, was like a dream come true for him. So you need to understand this. Now, after a few days, Anis Jung again meets Sahib. She notices what? She notices that Sahib now works at a tea stall. You understand? Sahib now works at a tea stall, and you need to understand that Sahib was getting 800 rupees and all his meals. Sahib was getting 800 rupees and all his meals, but the question is, was he happy working at the tea stall? This is certain points here. First of all, when he was actually working as a rag picker, he was free to roam around here and there, but he was not burdened with responsibilities. You understand? But after joining the tea stall, he had to work like a servant because he was working under a master. So he had lost the carefree look from his face. He was burdened with the responsibility. And the author mentions that the plastic bag was much lighter than the steel canister. He has to go to the milk booth, get the milk, work at the tea stall. So the steel canister that he used to carry. So the plastic bag was lighter than the steel canister. That means, it is a symbol of what? His heightened, sense of burden, his heightened sense of responsibilities. And now he has to follow each and every instruction of his master. He was no longer his own master, and he has lost his freedom, he has lost his independence, he had lost his happiness. Now, the next part of this chapter is about, of course, whom? Is about Mukesh, a bangle making family ka ek, boy. So you need to understand what happens in this particular. So Anis Jung again approaches this boy Mukesh. She asks, what do you want to become? He says that I want to become a motor mechanic. Now, of course he says this with a lot of, he looks straight into her eyes when he says this. So this was reflecting his sense of confidence. He was really optimistic. He was really positive about, and he was very sure of achieving whatever he had planned. He said that I want to be a motor mechanic, but Anis Jung says it was like a mirage to me. Fine, because coming from the dusty streets of Firozabad, fine, he comes from an impoverished family of bangle makers. He was as poor as a church mouse, and so therefore Anis Jung was not able to believe how he'll be able to achieve this dream of his. It was like a mirage to her. It was like an illusion to her. It was a pipe dream, a far-fetched dream, which was difficult to achieve because his family did not have enough resources to support his dream. Now, Anis Jung describes Firozabad as the center of India's glass blowing industries, a very famous place for glass bangles. You need to understand this. But she also highlights the irony in this place. Irony in this place is that the bangle makers over here, the poor bangle makers, make colorful and vibrant glass bangles which spread their vibrancy across the world. But the irony lies in the fact that they make colorful bangles, but their own life was colorless. Their own life was absolutely devoid of any kind of color. This is the irony over here. And next, Anis Jung highlights, the problem of child labor. You understand, in Firozabad, just like in Simapuri, child labor is also there in Firozabad. And she highlights the bangle making units. Find the bangle making industry, the bangle making units where the children used to work. How dangerous the place was. 20,000 children almost used to work over there, and these bangle making units were like dark, dingy cells. They were like Kalkotri. There was no light, there was no air. So these were devoid of air and light. Children have to work here. Children had to work here, in high temperature, and they often ended up losing their eyesight. There are two reasons for that. One reason, because of the dust of the glass bangles when they are soldering the pieces of glass. The dust of glass bangles often resulted in their losing eyesight, and they slog their daylight hours. They continue to toil. They continue to work their fingers to the bone in the day, and they never get to see the sun. So they lose the brightness of their eyes as a result of this. Now, Anis Jung also describes, she's talking to Mukesh, this particular boy Mukesh. She's talking to him. He says, let me just go, take you to my house. It is being renovated, this thing, that thing. And when Anis Jung is going through the alleys and lanes of Firozabad, she's able to notice the ramshackle condition in which the houses were in, the miserable conditions in which people were living in Firozabad. You need to understand that the lanes were stinking because they were choked with garbage and filled. There was a foul smell over there. One. Point number two, the walls of the houses in Firozabad, they were almost about to, tumble down tumble down walls. They could crumble down any moment. So the houses in Firozabad had crumbling walls, wobbly doors, and no windows. You need to keep in mind. and people and animals were living in a crowded manner in the primeval state, like in an old fashioned time, people and animals living together. Now, the other thing, now Mukesh, Anish Jung goes to Mukesh's family. She talks to Mukesh's family. And how many people are there in Mukesh's family? I've just written over there. You can have a very quick look. And you need to understand that Mukesh's elder brother's wife now had the burden of, so many responsibilities she had. She was also very young. Now, one thing that is being highlighted is Mukesh says that my house was being renovated. When Anish Jung reaches over there, she finds that it was as bad as the other houses. And but the only mark of prosperity could be that there were green vegetables being cooked in a pot, and there were a lot of other green vegetables lying yet to be cooked, all of that. But you need to understand that Mukesh was absolutely different from his family. Fine, Mukesh was absolutely different from his family, especially his grandmother. Mukesh's grandmother used to think that, Mukesh's grandmother used to think that bangle making was written in their stars. It was their destiny, it was a God given lineage which could not be challenged. If a child is born into the family of bangle makers, he was supposed to become bangle maker only later in life, because he will never find success anywhere in life. This is the opinion of the grandmother. So Mukesh's family, Mukesh's grandmother, Mukesh's father is also very disillusioned. Grandmother thinks they could not do anything apart from bangle making. Mukesh's father was also very disappointed. He used to, he started as a tailor, then he became a bangle maker. But unfortunately, he still couldn't renovate, his house. He couldn't still, what one might call, he couldn't uh, send his children to school. Now, another thing that you need to understand over here is the difference I was talking about. Mukesh's family absolutely feels defeated, pessimistic, they've given up, they are absolutely negative. But Mukesh was still hopeful, he was optimistic, he had the ability to dream, he could dare to dream, and he wanted to become a motor mechanic. It was like a breath of fresh air, and he wanted to break free from the cycle of poverty. So you need to understand this. Now, after talking to Mukesh's family, then Anish Jung steps out of Mukesh's house. She finds a young girl sitting in a drab pink dress named Savita. She was sitting near an elderly woman. She was sitting near an old woman, and she is also a child labor. She was also soldering the pieces of glass and all of that, and she was also forced into labor early in life. You understand? And then she says, the bangles that these children make, find Sabita and Mukesh and other children in Seema, in Firozabad, these people don't know the significance of these bangles. Now, Anish Jung highlights the importance of glass bangles. She says, the bangles, in Indian culture, especially the red ones, they show suhag in marriage. They show auspiciousness in marriage. You need to understand, because bangles are thought to bring happiness, prosperity, conjugal bliss and all kinds of things. They are thought to bring good luck, fine, and long life of the husband and all kinds of things. But these children don't know the sanctity of the bangles that they make. Now, after talking to Mukesh, she goes to the other people in Firozabad, she talks to them, and she finds one common complaint. Lament is complaint. She finds, Anish Jung finds one common lament echoing in every house. Every house, there is one common complaint that is repeating itself. Every man is just saying, every young man is only saying one thing, that we don't have money, हमारे पास पैसे ही नहीं, हम क्या करें, हम तो bangle making करेंगे. They have no money, they have no resources, they can't start something new, and they can't start something new, they couldn't start a new venture, all of that. So their only option was to carry on with the bangle making business. The fact is that years of mind numbing toil, fine, years of mind numbing toil, years of hard work had actually killed all initiative, all their ability to dream has gone away from here. But Mukesh was absolutely different, not only from his family, but also from the other people living in Simapuri. Now, other people living in Firozabad. Now, Anis Jung now gives a suggestion. Anis Jung now gives a suggestion to whom? Anis Jung now gives a suggestion to the people in Firozabad, to the young men in Firozabad. She says, why don't you organize yourself into a cooperative? Because you guys know ki, there is this person, there's a farmer, fine. Farmer ke baad there are these middlemen, फिर there is the shopkeeper, then the consumer. So middlemen actually causes a lot of corruption. Middlemen actually gives a lot of injustice to the manufacturers and the people who are doing things and all of that. So you need to understand, Anis Jung says, why don't you organize yourself into a cooperative? Make a group of yourselves, just, get rid of this vicious circle of whom? The circle of middlemen. So the people in Firozabad, the young men in Firozabad, they say that we are poor and uneducated. Neither do we have any knowledge, nor do we have any courage. They are fear stricken. They are absolutely fear stricken. And they say that if anything goes wrong, we neither have knowledge, nor do we have any courage, nor do we have the ability to dream now. You understand? If anything, no matter what, if anything goes wrong, we are poor. We are the ones who are going to be dragged to the jail and put behind bars. We'll be beaten up by the police and nobody else will be affected. So these are the problems that came up. Now, Anis Jung, after meeting the people in Firozabad and all of that, she is able to highlight what? She is able to notice a vicious circle that these people in Firozabad, they were trapped in. The vicious circle was of poverty, apathy, greed and injustice. Anis Jung explains that this vicious circle was disallowing people in Firozabad to grow. See, first thing she says, see, poverty is the root cause of all their problems. You understand? So she mentions that poverty was actually the root cause of all their problems and it was not letting them grow. You understand? So this perpetual cycle of poverty, it was really difficult to get out of. To make matters worse, fine, the people, the society, they were absolutely indifferent. They were absolutely unconcerned. They didn't give a damn to what was happening to these poor people. So first problem was poverty. Fine. See, poverty is the root cause of their problems. To make matters worse, society does not care about the people of Firozabad. You understand? Then, to add to their pains and woes, the sahukas, the middlemen, all these people, ये जो मिले हुए हैं सारे लोग, the middlemen, the sahukas, policemen, keepers of the law, politicians, bureaucrats, they have a strong nexus between them. सब मिले हुए हैं. You understand? And they extend a lot of injustice to whom? Because of their greed, they are very greedy. Fine. And they extend a lot of injustice to whom? To the poor bangle makers. As a result of this, they continue to remain poverty stricken. So to repeat, poverty is the root cause of all their problems. To make matters worse, society is absolutely callous. Society is absolutely indifferent. Society does not care, fine, about whom. One is sympathy, one is apathy. Sympathy opposite apathy. Apathy is I don't give a damn to what is happening to people in Firozabad. So to make matters worse, people of the society are absolutely devoid of any kind of emotion, devoid of any kind of sympathy for these people. And to add to their pains, to add to their problems, the people around them are greedy. Fine, the middlemen, the sahukars, the keepers of the law, the policemen, the politicians, all these people are greedy and they exploit the bangle makers. This leads to a lot of injustice to whom? This leads to a lot of injustice to the poor bangle makers. As a result of this, they continue to remain in the web of poverty. They continue to remain in this vicious web of poverty. Now, another thing that Anis Jung points out is, she mentions that actually the children in Firozabad, they are forced into labor very early in life. There are two worlds that are responsible for that. One is the world of parents. You understand? Parents don't have money. They can't get their children educated and all of that and all kinds of things. Because of this, the parents can only pass on the burden of bangle making to these children. One. The other thing that stops these children from growing and they are trapped in poverty. The second is the vicious circle of all these people, all these corrupt forces, sahukars, middlemen, policemen, they have a strong nexus between them and they exploit every single person in Firozabad. So because of this, the children are, because of these two worlds, the world of the parents and the world of these greedy people, because of all these two reasons put together, you need to understand the children in Firozabad, they are not able to grow, they can only do bangle making. Now, before leaving, Anish Jung asks one last question from, Mukesh. She asks, do you also dream of flying a plane? Do you want to become a pilot? Do you dream of flying a plane? The very important question is, why does she do that? Very important, you need to understand. She just wanted to check whether this boy in front of me, everyone is saying we can't dream, we can't do this, हम कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते. But Mukesh is saying that I want to be a motor mechanic. It was a positive dream. But she wanted to check whether, this boy was truly committed to his dream, whether he was truly, devoted to his dream, or was it just daydreaming? Was it just wishful thinking like Sophie? We did it. So she just wanted to check, whether it was idle daydream, because children, what do? एक मूवी देखी फाइटर तो उनको आर्मी में जाना है, इसमें जाना है, एयरफोर्स में जाना है. कोई मूवी देखी डॉक्टर बनना है, this thing. So children keep vacillating. Children keep changing. So she wanted to check whether he would stick to one goal or would he vacillate? Would he vacillate? Would he change his dream all of a sudden? And Mukesh's reply is something moving, and Mukesh's reply is something really striking for us. When this question is put up to Mukesh, he becomes silent suddenly. Fine, and the silence is telling us a lot of things, and he then says no, and he looks at the ground. Remember when it is asked, what do you want to become? He says motor mechanic, and he looks straight into Anish Jung's eyes. Fine, that reflects confidence. But when this question is put up, do you also dream of flying a plane? Mukesh becomes silent. Mukesh looks at the ground. Mukesh says no. Fine. So all of this means that he's rooted in reality. He knows that the dream of becoming a motor mechanic is difficult, not impossible. But the dream of flying a plane is impossible for him. And last line of the chapter is, few planes fly over Firozabad. There's a difference between few and a few. In grammar we did it. You need to understand that, Anish Jung wants to say there's hardly any plane that flies from, flies over Firozabad. If Mukesh has not even seen planes flying from Firozabad, how can he even think of dreaming about it? You understand? So this brings us to the end of Lost Spring.